A review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on this episode of the Movies Past and Present podcast. Hello and welcome to the Movies Past and Present podcast. It's July 8th, 2023, and this is episode 108. I'm your host, Stanford Clark, and I'm podcasting from the crossroads of the West in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. Just like my blog, moviespastandpresent.com, I'll be providing recommendations, commentary, and reviews about current and classic cinema. Thanks for tuning in, and let's do this thing. In Classic Cinema Corner, we've got three films. First up are actually two films that are part of the 2023 Studio Ghibli Fest. This, of course, is through Fathom Events. And on July 9th and 11th, in theaters, you can see Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. This film is from 1984. And it's a lovely environmental fable. And if you've never seen it, you know it might be worth checking out. The one I'm most excited about is the other film that's playing is Castle in the Sky from 1986. This film, I just think it's one of Studio Ghibli's best. It's going to be playing in theaters July 10th and July 12th. So make sure you check the Fathom Events website. I'll have a link to that in the podcast notes on my blog, but it's fathomevents.com, and you can see where that's playing, and definitely worth checking out, particularly Castle in the Sky. This month's Fathom's big screen classic is National Lampoon's Vacation from 1983, starring Chevy Chase. This is a comedy that a lot of people like. I can't say it's one of my favorites, but it's funny. So again, if that's your thing, it might be fun to check that out on the big screen. That's going to be playing on July 16th and July 19th. And again, check the Fathom Events website for specifics. All right. Well, I have the pleasure this week of talking to my good buddy Chris Dallin. Again, we're going to be talking about the new Indiana Jones films, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I had a chance to see this film over the 4th of July, and actually got to see it with Chris and his family. So that was really, that was a lot of fun. And I'm just really crazy about this movie. I absolutely love it. So here is my conversation with Chris about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Joining me again for the podcast is my good friend Chris Dallin. Hi, Chris.
Nice to be with you today, Stan. Hello.
How's it going?
Really well. I'm kind of excited to talk a little bit about our good friend Indiana Jones.
I know, me too. Here we've got another shot to talk about Indiana Jones. It was so fun to do that recap together about the four previous films, and then now we've got this brand new one, and I had the pleasure of seeing it with you and your family. So thank you so much for including me. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. So, all right, Chris, well, let's dive into it, my friend. What are your overall thoughts about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Well, at this point in my life, Stan, Indiana Jones is much more than just a movie. It's part of our culture. I mentioned in our last conversation how much I enjoyed the film when I went to see it for the first time when I was just 11 years old. It's had a big impact. And really, if you think about the iconography of characters that have been created over time, Indiana Jones has certainly got to be in the top 10 list, Stan.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So absolutely. I really like the film. I'm excited to see it again, just because I think you miss things and so on. But what I was struck by, and what I was driving to earlier is, this kind of swan song for Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
Who knows what will happen with the franchise moving forward, if there'll be other characters. Now, there's been announcements, at least as I understand them, that Indiana Jones will not continue without Harrison Ford. But, there could be others in what we'll call the Indiana Jones universe.
yeah.
Right. So we'll see what happens there. But, I was looking at the ages of some of the people that are involved in this film and the traditional ones as well. And we've kind of watched their entire career over our lives anyway, Stan. You take a look at Karen Allen. Ironically, she's 71.
Okay.
Steven Spielberg, 76. George Lucas, 79. Harrison Ford, 80. And then the patriarch of the group is John Williams at 91 years old.
Wow.
And they are getting it done, and they made a world-class movie. I loved it, Stan.
Thank you, Chris, for your thoughts here. As we talked about after, I love this movie too. I just absolutely love it, and thought it was just a total blast and a really great send off to such a great character. It just the whole thing worked for me. So anyway, there's that. So thanks for bringing up those ages too. Isn't that interesting? And you know then the John Williams score and just the great performance from Harrison Ford, and here they are. They are no spring chickens, but they're still getting it done, aren't
They are getting it done. And that's the thing with John Williams is there's not a person on the planet that can argue to me anyway that the film scores for the Indiana Jones films are just as much of a character as anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, true. It's so true, Chris. So, Chris, what were your thoughts about the story? The plot of the Dial of Destiny.
Right. And I think we decided that we're not worried about spoilers here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I wanted to say this is spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about everything about this movie. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, the plot, let's start with the beginning of the film.
Okay.
Julie Andrews teaches us that that's a good place to start. So what's interesting is we see Indiana Jones in his prime. They did some de-aging technology. That's how it starts. And it's a little bit shocking, almost as if there was some film found somewhere. In other words, they did a really nice job, I believe, with the de-aging process. And you learn in that exposition, as Indiana Jones is so good at doing, is understanding what the plot is, and that's finding the Dial of Destiny, which we all know now is kind of a time travel mechanism. And it's the whole film is kind of wrapped around that. And then, of course, peppered with what you and I know as the chase scenes and innuendo and funny punny lines and other things that come with a great Indiana Jones film. So I really liked the idea of this time travel. And frankly, between you and I, Stan, and your listeners now, I kind of had these fantasies about maybe able to time travel back to, Raiders of the Lost Ark or, some of the other previous films as well. But I really like the premise and the fact that Indiana Jones was able to experience real history firsthand was really great. And just seeing him being able to experience and wanting to be part of that history was really a joyride. It was a lot of fun, but um, didn't disappoint with the chase scenes. Didn't disappoint with the puns and the fun. Really great show. So I love the plot and those details too, Stan.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Just to echo what you said, that opening sequence where we've got a de-aged Harrison Ford, and overall those de-aging special effects I thought were pretty good. Maybe there were a couple shots that didn't look perfect, but I looked believable to me. And I gotta tell you, there's nothing more satisfying than Indiana Jones punching out Nazis. I just love that. I just love that so much. But in this opening sequence, just as you're saying, he's with his an archaeological friend who's named Basil Shaw, who's played by Toby Jones, and the Nazis are pilfering all of these art, all this art and artifacts, and so everything's going on this particular train, and that's where they find this dial, and I have a hard time pronouncing this word, Chris, but it's the Antikythera, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But it was created, as you mentioned, by the mathematician Archimedes, who lived in Sicily, in Italy,
Right.
and so the dial is of course there. They referring to it as the dial of destiny, but it's this Antikythera is the thing that drives the plot forward in this film, and it's another cool thing. And another thing that I really love the design of it. Uh, this particular dial and whatnot, and so anyway, super great opening sequence. That then we get flash forward to 1969 in New York City, and we meet up with Indiana Jones again, kind of being the angry old man telling his neighbors to shut up. Although I think they deserved it. They were, but it's they're celebrating the landing on the moon, and that the astronauts are going to be coming to New York City for a parade. So Indiana Jones teaches at Hunter College, and I found out, Chris, that Hunter College actually is a thing. It's a public university that's in New York City, and so anyway, I had wondered if that was something they had, was fictional or real, and it's real. So anyway, what did you think of finding Harrison Ford, I guess Indiana Jones, in kind of a sad state at the beginning of the film? What were your thoughts
Well,
on that?
well, sad and state indeed, because he was served some divorce papers.
Yeah,
As the last time that we saw Indiana Jones, he was getting married, of course, to Marion,
yeah,
and he was served the divorce papers, and he was retiring, which, we all know that he doesn't seem like the retiring type.
yeah,
And so I think that's what drove a lot of that. And then all of a sudden, his spirits pick up when an adventure is presented on Next Steps, when he's introduced to his goddaughter.
yeah, yeah. We meet Helena Shaw, who's the daughter of Basil Shaw, again played by Toby Jones, and she's got an interesting proposition for him, doesn't she?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. She does, and the way that goes is just classic Indy. Helena says, "You don't remember me, do you?" And of course, Harrison Ford's character responds non-verbally with this, "No, I don't remember you." But his dialogue says, "Whatever I did, I apologize." um, Almost a Han Solo type response,
yeah.
frankly.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
So
so, have you seen? So this is Helena is played by the actress Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She's a Brit. Are you familiar with her at all, Chris? Have you ever seen her before?
I have not, but I was delighted with her performance. I
Yeah.
liked it. She was tough. She had a Marion sort of quality. Um, uh, she was really willing to jump in, and she in and of herself was a little bit of a scoundrel, like Harrison Ford's character could be.
I know, right? She had a past
Exactly.
for sure in her very young, her young uh, age. You know, I had seen her before. Well, one thing, Chris, this Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she was the voice of the droid L337 that was in Solo, a Star Wars story.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Huh.
and I'm not sure if she was doing any motion capture on how. I probably not. Given although that droid kind of was more humanoid in shape. And she's a writer. She co-wrote the screenplay for the most recent James Bond movie, No Time to Die.
Oh wow.
So she's an interesting person. She also was in this series called Fleabag, which I think has a real kind of a cult following. I believe it's on Amazon Prime, but don't quote me because I think I've seen maybe one episode because I was just curious about her. And this was months ago. Maybe even when I learned that she was in the new Indiana Jones film, that's when I watched Fleabag. Um, Fleabag is probably not everybody's cup of tea. I think it's probably definitely for mature mature audiences. But she's a good actress, and I'm with you. I loved her in this. I thought she was great just a great buddy, and I think a perfect addition to the team for
Yeah.
for this movie. Now on that train sequence that we were talking about too, Chris, we meet the bad guy of the film, who is played by Mads Mikkelsen. Uh, what did you think of the bad dude in this movie?
I you know, I think that he plays a good villain for sure. And what he does, as you learn at the beginning of the film, and then as we go along, we learn that the character wants to go back, correct some of Hitler's mistakes, and then take power for himself.
Yeah,
So, that kind of speaks to the kind of individual the character is. But Mads Mikkelsen pulls it off delightfully. And, he comes off as smart and intelligent as well as pointed and, you know, um, a little bit dogmatic, as you might imagine, which makes him a great villain.
I think so too. I think he's awesome. And good de-aging on him as well, right? Although his face is kind of timeless looking, I think he could pull, kind of get away with any age, just kind of color the change of his hair, give him some glasses. But he's such a good villain. Rounding out the cast, uh, we've got so Helena has a little buddy, uh, Teddy is his name.
Right.
And I don't know. He's played by Ethan Isidore, and I don't know if he's had any other film credits, but he was great. Kind of, reminded me of Short Round in a way. I mean, just as far as just skilled, and maybe he was a little more chill than Short Round. But what did you think of Teddy?
Oh, I thought Teddy was great. Again, a thief on the street, is hanging out with her and is helpful and plays a pivotal role, in the plot and helping to accomplish the goal of saving the world.
Chris, one of the happy things too about the film was John Rhys Davies reprising his role as Sala.
Was
Even though
great.
he's not in it very much, it made me so happy to see him. What were your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm going to answer that in some of the dialogue of the film because I think it was so great, and really wrapped up a lot of the thought of the movie for me. Sulla says, "I miss the desert. I miss the sea, and I miss waking up every morning wondering what wonderful adventure the new day will bring to us. Indy responds, those days have come and gone. And Sala says, perhaps, and perhaps not. And then you see that those adventures continue. And it was fun to kind of see the band come back together, from the original movie. And it was fun to see Sala again for sure.
Yeah, I isn't that the greatest? That's such a great quote. Um, and then I love it how when Indiana Jones turns around, he almost get hit by a car.
Right.
I know the whole thing worked for me. um, so so Helena basically, when she comes to visit, Indy, he takes her back into the archives at the school, and he's got this portion of the dial that still remains. The dial ended up driving Helena's dad, Basil Shaw, mad. Um, just he was obsessed with it. What was your take on that? When we learned about that, and then also how she then runs off with the dial.
Well, there was a pact between Indy and Basil that Indy would destroy it because he knew the trouble it could create. Of course, Indy didn't do it, and it was there in the archives, pulled it out. And as you mentioned, Helena steals it basically from him and runs off with it because she is obsessed. And I think, she's trying to accomplish some of her own, um, you know, correcting of history with the relationship that she had with her father to try to understand some of the details there as well. But she had spent a lifetime studying this and clearly had a mission when she shows up to meet Indiana Jones.
Yeah, uh, I just again, just I think a great character, and just uh, just really like how everything just continued to progress. So then, uh, Indy follows her. They have that. Well, I should say they've got that chase sequence in New York City. So the henchman of this, Mads Mikkelsen, the evil Nazi guy, uh, are chasing Helena, and then they chase Indy because he's involved, and they also kill some of Indy's college colleagues that we just met. So, and then he's there on the murder scene, and clearly his blood. He touches the coworker that's got blood all over, and then he touches the phone, so the fingerprints. I mean, he's going to be framed for murder. So he knows that he's got to get out of there too. And then we've got our first, or I guess technically it's our second, right? Chase scene in the film. What do you think of that whole parade chase scene?
It was so great, and the parade, if I'm not mistaken, Stan, was to celebrate the moon landing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and of course, Indy has one of the best lines in the movie. I think he was not impressed with the whole moon thing. Right? He said,
yeah.
"Going to the moon is like going to Reno and discovering they don't have blackjack."
I loved
uh,
it.
Pretty unimpressed with what was going on there. Of course, he lived in
Yeah,
history rather than being part of it, And I don't think that Indy recognized the significance that was happening at the time.
yeah,
And really, that's part of the film. I think there's this undertone and this message that I picked up that we could be very well be living in one of the most historical times in the world, but historians in the future will get to declare that. And I think that Indy put that together at the end that we'll get to in a minute of how significant history can be. But when you're living in it, it doesn't seem as much. And I think that the movie kind of drove that home for me of, living in the now and understanding the weight and the historical significance are there. But I don't think that Indy recognized that until the end of the film.
yeah. I agree. Well said. Uh, you know, uh, when things get to they go to Tangier because Helena's going to try to sell this, piece of the dial that she just got from Indy, and then Indy gets there and he's not having it. I think one of the many favorite things about this film are some of the homages to the previous Indiana Jones films. So
Right.
there's one where he's there to stop this auction that Helena's doing uh, of the dial, and he pulls out his whip, and starts cracking it, and then every single one of these gangsters or whoever, are there like 15 guns pointing at him, and
Right.
then he just like dives under the table. That cracked me up. I mean, again, just because there's a lot of these little things, and then I think at that point things just are nonstop. The action's nonstop, and they've got that terrific chase scene through the streets that I love, and again with just this great John Williams score and fantastic. I think technically it's just excellent. Just fantastic editing. It's so exciting as they're in that little. I don't know, what do you call that little vehicle that they're in?
Yeah,
That little three little
golf cart. Yeah.
yeah
Much faster, right?
right. But that whole thing's a kick. What did you think of that chase scene through the streets of Tangier?
Oh, that was fun. It was really fun. Again, those chase scenes in Indiana Jones are fantastic, and I I love the use of some of the things that would be on the street there, in the 60s and 70s, and it was fun to like watch that bundle of sticks kind of turn a little bit as a
Yes.
result of that,
Yeah.
their pursuers.
Yep.
It's funny.
Well, and if they didn't film it all over there, in Tangier, it sure looked like they did. I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of digital effects, but I think that much of this movie was filmed on location, and it showed. I thought it really showed. That was one of the things that I think really bummed me about the Crystal Skull, is that there was so much digital, and maybe again there was equivalent digital in this film, and just the techniques have improved. But you could just tell, there's that Jeep chase scene that they do in the Crystal Skull that again is just so unbelievably fakey,
Right, right.
and these all look to me terrific, and were just again it just worked for me.
Well, me too. And if they weren't practical, they sure look like it.
Yeah, he sure looked like it. I agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Just again with these great stunt drivers and just anyway, the whole thing, it looked great. I thought that particular chase was a real standout. Well, so then the adventure really starts, because then they show one of my favorite things from an Indiana Jones film, Chris, is the map with the red line, where showing where they're traveling,
Yeah.
where they're traveling to, and first off, they have to go get this tablet, which is going to hopefully lead them to the other half of the dial, and the tablet's underwater. So they enlist the help of one of Indiana Jones' friends and go off the coast of Greece and to dive to an ancient shipwreck in the Aegean Sea. And again, another really cool sequence when they're diving, because again, I don't think we've had a real underwater sequence like that in an Indiana Jones film, have we?
Yeah. No.
What were your take on that diving scene, dude?
Oh my gosh, the diving scene was fun. Again, an homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
It was funny. You see a couple ills, and Helena says, "Hey, they look like snakes." And quickly, and Jones goes back and says, "No, they don't. No, don't look like
Yeah.
snakes."
His face. That was such a good one.
Well, and then later on, and you'll get to this, but walking through a cave, and again felt a lot like the Temple of Doom with all the bugs.
Oh, the bugs, classic Indiana Jones, right? Just yeah, it was just I I agree. Um, so the whole time they're being pursued by these Nazi folks, and um, anyway, they finally end up in Italy. They get to Syracuse, Italy, and they are off to uh, find the resting place of Archimedes and get this other half of the dial. And just as you were saying, Chris, through the caves and all that, that's just such a classic Indiana Jones sequence. And I want to go see I want to go to Syracuse there in Sicily, see those beautiful ruins. We got that big temple and uh, all that stuff, which is great. So there's that whole thing where they do find the body of Archimedes. They find the other half of the dial. Then of course the Nazis are right there too. And then Indy gets shot.
Right.
And what was your take about that, Chris? That whole kind of final, or not because it wasn't final, because we got a whole another big thing to talk about. But that whole thing there in the cave, what went down?
Well, I was frankly worried because, the advanced media on the movie has made it clear this is Harrison Ford's last Indiana Jones.
Yeah. I know.
So you're thinking, oh my gosh.
Crud.
That would be a sucky way to have Indiana Jones, leave the universe.
Yeah.
Have him die of a gunshot wound, right?
Yeah.
So you wonder what's going to happen there. So that does bring an extra level of drama to the film, to be sure.
Yeah, definitely. And so they all make their way out. They it was interesting to me that I was glad they didn't kill Indy, and I guess they just felt like they needed his skills, I guess, at a certain level, or
right. Right.
And they get in this airplane, and then they point the time machine, because they've got both sides now of this dial connected, and their goal is to go back to Syracuse. Was it to 1939, I believe, Chris? Does that sound right?
1939.
Yeah.
and it was interesting, right?
Yeah. So Voller, who I believe Voller, who's the name of the Mads Mikkelsen character, yeah, you can go back to 1939, and the goal is to assassinate Hitler. And so they're in an airplane doing this, and then luckily little Teddy, who's pretty talented kid, gets in another plane. But then Helena is saving the day. The plane's taking off in the rain, and she's on her motorcycle on the runway, and she's able to get onto the landing gear and get into the plane where Indy is, and the Nazis. That was exciting. What did you think about all that?
Which the parallel for me was almost like Raiders of the Lost Ark, when Marion is in the Nazi sub.
Yep.
And then Harrison Indy chases after her, and they cheer him on, from the boat. Yeah. A little bit like that, like she's going to save the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was cool too. And kind of, an homage definitely to that. So then we have what I think is being referred to as either a wild swing or a big swing, but also to me, it just feels like it was very much an Indiana Jones thing, very much that they go through this portal up in the clouds, thinking that they're going to 1939, but lo and behold, they go to 212 BC. During the time when Archimedes was alive, and during the siege of Syracuse happening, and I thought the way that they reveal that just kind of slowly, where you don't really know what's happening, and then all of a sudden you see all these ships, and you realize, we're not in 1939. We're like in Roman times, and it's crazy, but I just said it worked. What was your take, Chris, on that battle as the airplane is flying through the siege of Syracuse?
Well, you can see Indy kind of thinking about what in the world's happened, what could go wrong, and he tries to talk uh, Jurgen out of next steps and says, "Wait, Archimedes didn't know about continental drift." And then he said, "I don't know where we're going, but it sure as hell isn't 1939." and, and then he shows up there, and then yeah, to your point, when they first come through, I think that everyone believes that they're actually in a war scene that might be World War II, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
But then as you get a little bit more granular, you realize that indeed it is not. It is much farther before, but the war scene was equally as exciting, to be sure.
Oh yeah, and so these big spears are coming through the airplane, and there's all this stuff going on, and then Helena is there. It's pretty exciting, and then of course little Teddy is staying steady on his plane, and it turns out that the pilot of the plane that Teddy is flying was actually just like taking a nap or was asleep in the plane. So that was kind of convenient, but definitely I thought smart, because Teddy was going to need some help to get the plane landed and then get it back, get it back out was the goal. So here, plane lands, and Indy's there. They've killed the Nazis. Again, spoiler alert. And Indy and Helena are there. They meet Archimedes, and they see all the stuff going around. And these are the exact same things that Indy was talking about at the beginning of the movie with his class, at Hunter College. And that was emotional for me because, here's Indy, and he's having this big adventure, but now he is actually living in a thing that he's studied for so much of his life. He's seeing it not as a ruin, but like in action. And he wants to stay. And that's his plan. He's not going to leave. He's not going to go back. Because I think he feels too like he has nothing to go back to. Harrison Ford, I thought, played this so well, because again, he's such a fine actor. But what were your thoughts on that scene where he's talking to Helen about how he wants to stay?
Well, I think that goes back to what I was saying before, Stan, about him realizing that appreciating the moment that we're in versus the history or the future along the way is so important. So for me, that was really the teaching moment within this film, which becomes for me kind of a philosophy that drives some things. And he said this quote at that moment that I really enjoyed, and I think was so profound for me. He says, "I don't believe in magic, but a few things in my life I'm going to do that again.
Okay.
I don't believe in magic, but a few times in my life I've seen things I can't explain. And I've come to believe it's not so much about what you believe, it's how hard you believe it." Meaning that living in the moment is important as well, not necessarily in the past or the future. And I think that's where Indy, for the first time in his career, recognizes that being in the moment is important rather than in the past.
Yeah, perfectly said, Chris. I wonder if he had a little more time to think about it, if he would maybe make a different choice. But Helena wasn't having it. So she knocked him out. She punched him out because we learned she's got a pretty mean punch. Her punch packs the wall up. And then the next thing we know, we're back in Indy's apartment in New York City. And Helena's there caring for him, and then Solace shows up, and then we have probably one of the great reveals of the film. When Marion walks in. What was your take, Chris, when Marion comes back into the film?
I loved it because I'm a big fan of Marion.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I've talked about that in the previous podcast, but she looked old, Stan,
yeah.
and
I think they really aged her. You
yeah,
know,
they must have aged her because she looked old, and I think that was to match, the intent. She is 9 years younger than Harrison,
yeah, yeah,
so I think they tried to make them equal in age, and or look like it to be sure. But I thought it was so great. It drives home what I was saying before is living in that moment is great. And then for me, one of the greatest scenes in the film is reliving again another scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, uh,
yeah.
where where Karen says, "Boy, I just kind of hurt everywhere," and Harrison says, "Well, where doesn't it hurt?" And then we all know the rest. I was still waiting, Stan, for that line of, "Hey, it's not the years, honey, it's the mileage."
I know, me too. That's one of our favorite lines, mutually favorite lines.
But I thought it was great, and what a great way to end the franchise, almost like a chiasmus of we're now where we began of
Yeah.
this relationship, and really kind of a sweet ending along the way. But that's not it, right? Um,
Well, I loved how the final shot. Indiana Jones's hat is out on the clothesline, drying,
right.
and you see this arm come out and pull it off the line.
Exactly, as to say that, hey, I'm not out to dry. And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
great. He gets to live on,
Yeah,
even though that we know that it's the last film.
I I thought it was a perfect way to end it, just with exactly what you described. That kind of that the flip of that scene from Raiders about where does it hurt, and then uh, you know uh, the kiss. I love the comment, Chris, from one of your family members was, "Ew, old people making out." Ew. but
Exactly that.
it was funny and appropriate, but it worked that that these two are gonna you feel like they're gonna reconcile. One thing that we didn't mention was that we learn in this film too that their son, who was played by Shia LaBeouf in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull film, um, would died. He enlisted in the Vietnam War to piss off his dad, and he got killed.
Right.
And that was sad. What's your take on killing off that character?
Well, I think the way that they did it was the right way. Helena comes to Indy and says, where would you like to go back in history? Would you like to meet with Cleopatra? Would you like to do some other things? And he said, I would go back and tell my son not to enlist. So we find out that he dies in the war, and
Yeah,
certainly sad, but a great way to create continuity in the story, to be sure.
yeah, yeah. So we won't be seeing probably any films of. I think that was one of the things that probably many of us thought after seeing Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is that Shia LaBeouf might be picking up, might be making his own kind of Indiana Jones style of a film, but that never happened. Shia kind of, went off the deep end, and I think it was also said a lot of disparaging remarks about it, this Indiana Jones stuff. So I think they were like, well, I guess that's not happening.
Yeah, which was albeit I did like his apparent comeback in the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yep, for sure. So, Chris, as we also know, this film was not directed by Steven Spielberg, as the other four were. It was directed by James Mangold, who is an American film and television director, screenwriter, and producer, who's got, I think, a very impressive resume. I've really liked a lot of his films. He directed Logan, which was kind of that dark uh, retelling about Wolverine, the Marvel Comics character Wolverine. One of my favorite films that he directed was Ford v Ferrari, which came out in 2019. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but he also directed Walk the Line. Is that Johnny Cash?
Yeah, I like that film.
Yeah, so he's directed a lot of I think quality stuff, and he's slotted to direct a Star Wars movie.
Oh, interesting.
So again, we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens, because those Star Wars directors kind of come and go.
Right.
You have to wait until it actually is made, but still, I like James Mangold's work, and I think this film is right up there. The quote I read, and again, I don't think this is hearsay, but it was so Bob Iger, the former and current CEO of Disney,
Right.
held a viewing party for this film. Steven Spielberg was there, and Spielberg's quote was, "I thought I was the only one who knew how to make this type of movie."
Right.
And I thought that was a really good compliment to James Mangold, because I think he really, I thought he really delivered a fantastic film.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was in indie style. It was had a lot of great dialogue, had a great chase scene. It was nostalgic. It was new. It was fun. I think that people ought to see this film, Stan.
Yeah, I think people need to give this film a chance too. I think clearly the film resonated so much with me, just as you were saying. Indiana Jones as a character has been a huge part of my life. Just having seen it when, the ages that we did, and then just how beloved the films are overall. And I was thrilled that they were going to be able to make one more film with Harrison Ford.
Exactly.
And so it really worked for me. I wonder if too, again, not that we need to delve into this too much, Chris, but I'm not sure that the film is really resonating with the younger audience. And I think some of that is just, you kind of maybe had to be there, to get more excited about this, even if one's parents showed these films to the family growing up. But also, I think too, you almost have to be like of a certain age to appreciate the and man, I'm thinking for me, Chris, because you're still spring chicken, dude. I'm I'm not. But I think you get reflective about your life in certain ways. And Harrison Ford's a lot older than I am, but I think the issues that they bring up and the themes that they bring up in this film, you might not appreciate if you're under age 50. I mean, let's be honest.
Right. Right.
What's your take on that?
Well, that's the thing is, we can think that that history was better than what we live in now. We can certainly think that. We can pick it up, brush it off, shine it up, and you hear people say, "Geez, these aren't the good old days," and then others saying, "Geez, maybe the future will be better than now." Well, the reality is we don't have that luxury. This is the only time that we're going to know, and we've got to make it the best that we possibly can make it. And I think that's another great message that came from that film for me is live in the now and really appreciate what you have, because it could be gone in the future.
Yeah. Really good points, Chris. Well, anything else we need to mention about this film other than to tell our great listeners to go see it?
well, yeah, kind of similar to what we did in the last podcast about Indiana Jones is ranking them now that we have 5 to rank. Where does Wheel of Destiny rank within the ranks of Indiana Jones? So here's my ranking system. Raiders of the Lost Ark, and seriously, one of the best films ever made, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. Perfect film.
Yeah, just amazing. If you haven't seen it in a while, you need to watch it again to realize what a great film it is. Right?
It's on Disney Plus. Go watch it.
Great place to watch it too. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, I would say, is number 2. That's because Sean Connery brings that um, amazing performance of his. And then surprisingly, number 3 is the Dial of Destiny. So, and then Temple of Doom, followed by Crystal Skull for me. How about you, Dan?
Chris, I'm identical. I got Raiders first, Last Crusade second, then Dial of Destiny third. Yeah, Temple of Doom, and then Crystal Skull.
Oh, that's it. Well, it was really a great film, and I think that people ought to see it for a number of reasons. And I remember when I was just a kid, I went to see The Shootist when I was smaller, and it was John Wayne's last film, and I didn't realize the significance of that until much later. So, to your point, I think this film lives on as the end of an era, and I think that when people see it and they look back, they'll realize what a significant film it really was.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really going to stand the test of time, and maybe if it doesn't really get a big audience now, I think over time it will. It's gonna be. It's just such a excellent send off to this character that I think we all respect and love so much.
Yeah, I agree. And you look back in history at the great characters, as we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. There's certainly characters like Batman and Wonder Woman, maybe even Rooster Cogburn or James Bond. Indiana Jones is certainly among their ranks, if not above.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Chris, it's just been a pleasure, as always, talking with you. Thank you again for your great insights and again, so fun to be able to not only talk about this movie, to see it with you and your family. So thank you again, my friend.
So much fun, and thank you. And your listeners are so lucky to get the insight that you bring. Some of the ways to connect dots and make the film viewing process so much more fun. So
well, thank you.
It's great to be with you, Stan. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Chris.
Huge thanks again to Chris Dallin for being on the podcast again. And that does it for this episode of the Movies Past and Present podcast. Links to more information about the movies discussed today can be found in the podcast notes on my blog at moviespastandpresent.com. Subscribe to the podcast where you listen to your podcasts, and follow me now on Threads at Stanford Clark, and also still on Instagram at moviespap, as in past and present. As always, I hope you'll enjoy some good movies this week, whether they be from the past or the present. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, be safe out there and dedicate yourself to the truth.
Bye.